Hi everyone, I'm Alia Jafar. So I remember back in college when I was deciding which direction I wanted to go into. I distinctly recall discussing this with my parents, and we had decided no medicine, no law, no finance, because all these professions have late hours, and as a mother and as a future homemaker, it would not be a good idea. So I went into marketing, not realizing that in marketing I would, in my first job, be at work till 4 a.m. So today I have Rabiah Khan. She is the CFO at Engro Powergen. Hi, Rabiah.
Hello.
So, Rabiah, briefly, would you tell us about what your journey's been like since you started working?
So it's interesting that you mentioned the career path that you couldn't take, because this was one of the acceptable career paths that I could take.
Finance.
Finance, yes. When I was 18, about to start college. My original passion was actually architecture, but I think somehow we decided, my parents and I, that architecture was not a very sanitized work environment for women, and it wasn't very good at paying initially either. And IBA happened, so I went to IBA. Then I moved into the finance field. I got married, I started doing my CFA, I had my kids, and I got into Engro. And somehow that move to finance just naturally kept on growing and going. The original plan had always been that I would eventually do architecture and design homes, and finance would become that safety net.
Oh, so you plan to do architecture?
In my mind, I think when you're 18 and you think the world is your oyster, you think you can do everything. And that's what I also thought, that I'd have so much time in my life that it would be no big deal to go back to college. I actually did go back to college, and I studied more finance.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay.
So I graduated from IBA in 2004. Then I worked at Habib Bank for a while, then I moved to Engro. I've been with Engro ever since, but I've actually taken breaks in the middle. I took 3 years off after I got married and had my first kid.
And you've been working over 15 years?
Yes. So after I'd been working at Engro, and then I took some time off, I got married, moved abroad, studied more finance, like I said, investment management, and I had my first kid. Then I took a year after that, finished my degree and my CFA, and came back.
So did you have those long hours, and how did you deal with that?
So there were long
Especially
hours.
after you had kids and there's homework.
There are long hours. There's homework. Homework comes much later after kids.
Days.
Yes, these days. But so yes, there are definitely long hours in finance. Finance is an interesting field because it is largely office based. So mostly parents will say it's more sanitized, it's safer, you don't really have to go to clients, you don't have to, technically you should be able to work out of a laptop anywhere in the world. Okay. And be able to do it. But in any corporate environment, I think there are closings in finance when you have to stay late. That's largely an accountant's job though. Okay. I was an MBA.
Okay.
So I didn't have to do that. But there is work. I have realized that no matter what you do, the early years are a lot of slogging. So you have to put in those hours, you have to put in the 9, 10,
and 11. And I think that's gender neutral, because yes, guys as well as women both have to do it. It is
everywhere. I think the difference is that as you grow up the ranks, actually that slogging should end. And in a lot of cases it does end, because you're no longer doing the actual groundwork, hands-on work. Now you've moved on to more of the strategic work, more of the thinking and directing and managing of work. And at that point, I think your phone really works. And, you're connected, you're on email, you can manage schedules.
That's true. These days, like 10 years ago, at least when I started working,
it wasn't like
none
that.
Of this was there.
But I think even then, there were times when the managers would leave, you would always get upset because they would give you work at 5 o'clock.
Yes, I don't know why people think of work at 5 in the evening.
Because I think all day they're doing other stuff.
They're doing nothing.
4 o'clock they start cleaning their mailbox,
yeah.
hand out work at 5 and leave to see it at 9 a.m. So I remember when I was starting out, I would always wonder that because my boss had kids, he'd get in at 8:30.
School drop.
Yes, and then there he would be like sending out mails. By the time you'd stumble in at 9:30, and I was an early bird. You know, there'd be a mailbox full of work to do for the whole day, and 5 p.m. you know, there'd be more stuff and meetings. So yeah, there is that, but there is a lot of late hours in finance, yes. A large amount of it, I think, is self-created because, so I think people start late, and then when you start late, if you're starting naturally at 10:30, then the 5:30 is 7 already.
And I think 10:30 when you start, you're already sort of throwing yourself in the pan.
Yes.
Right? In the fire.
You are. Everybody is starting at 10:30, at least mostly. It's usually the women who want to start at 9 because they want to leave by 6.
Yeah.
The guys are very okay with starting at 10:30 or 11 and going on till 7:30 and 8. There's a lot of work to be done. And I think at the end of the day, it just compresses into getting done.
So how do you manage that? Especially with the kids?
I've been actually very lucky. So I realized early on in my career that I wanted everything. You know, when you're young and innocent and you think it's so easy.
Yes.
And I can do this. Like, hello, those guys just didn't know. Let me show them how it's supposed. So I realized, I decided early on in my career that I did want a family and I did want a career. So both were equally important to me. Once I decided that, the next steps are pretty natural. You know, how do you go about making this happen? I'm a bit of a planner in that way. So I realized I needed a support network, which is very strong. I needed people around me, my family, my in-laws, my parents, in fact, even extended family. I've used my husband's khala and my nani. They've all taken care of my kids.
Wow. Also, you had also mentioned that you've taught your staff accounting.
Oh yes, yes.
Which I thought was incredible.
Yeah, I taught him single entry accounting, so he could run a line of credit for me. My driver does that. He makes a whole list of stuff for me. He manages my house. At the end of the week on Monday morning, he gives me a bill, and he can't.
Which is great
he's
because
not actually literate. They've just not had the same opportunities as you and me. But I'm sure if they did, they'd also be going places.
Yeah.
So coming back to taking care of the kids and work and everything, so I had decided early on that, you know, if we want to do both of it, everything, the fallacy that you can have everything, you need a strong support network, which I built. My parents-in-laws, my parents, my extended family, and I used everybody. You know, if you would even fakely offer to help me out, I would probably take you up on it and hold you to it.
Yeah.
Because at that time, I just needed to make it to work on time and back on time, and everything
else. So how
else
about
had
at
to
work then? What about the dynamics or the support of people around you?
So that's the other thing. I had an unwitting mentor.
Okay, what does that mean?
I don't think he ever signed up for it, but the poor man just got roped into giving advice. And he actually taught me something very important. Clarity of thought is very important. So you have a million things you could be doing. So you decide family comes first. When you've decided that, you plug everything else in your life into that structure. So your family comes first, and then it's work, then it's your spouse, because it is. I mean, I'm not being Indra Nui here, but somehow when your children are younger, that's how it is.
And I think the husbands also kind of understand that.
Yes, actually in the early years, also when we moved back from Pakistan and I started at Engro again, my husband used to work from home.
Okay.
So for 3 or 4 years, he did the school pick and drop.
Oh wow.
So he would go at 12 to pick up my daughter, bring her back, and you know.
And if that wasn't the case, would that have stopped you from continuing?
I'm not sure, but I think I would have figured. I think I would have figured something, because I have. You know, when I decide to do something, I want to get it done. So and I want to give it my best shot.
So Rabiah, I want to know. how life has been as a working mother for you?
So I think you know just as well as I do that it's never easy. But the first thing I think you need to understand, and I understood very fast after I got over the initial phase of thinking I could have it all, is that it's true that you can't always have it all at one time. You know, sometimes something will slip and sometimes something else will slip. The biggest decision you will ever make in your life as a career mother and working mother is who you marry. Because your spouse actually can either give you the greatest support and push you forward or hold you back. So they're not kidding. All those people who say that, you know, who you marry is the most important decision you make, it's really true. And for me, as single-handedly, I would say my parents might have gotten me through education and everything, but getting me forward, and lots of times when I wanted to just, you know, quit because it was just too tiring, it was just too much, and the guilt was too much, there was my husband to say, "Nee, these things happen. These children will get over it and so will you." The other thing is, I think, a very strong...
And sorry, at that also, I remember you had mentioned about how in your career also, he has been in the back guiding you as to how to navigate within the office as well, right?
Yes, he has been in very crucial points. Like, and I think because he's an entrepreneur, so his skill set is very different. The people he works with are very different. The situations he's in are very different. So as corporate, you're very used to the ladder. So you talk to this person who talks to this person, and you move up that ladder, right? Entrepreneurs don't work like that. So they work to get things done. And his advice has been instrumental, yes. You know, you need somebody to tell you this is not important, but that is. So, you know, instead of getting lost in this battle on the ground right now, you know, this war on the ground right now, look at the bigger picture and where you want to get. I think outlook is very important, especially calendars, especially, you know, these days, children, exam time. If it's not exams, it's something else is happening. Children have very full lives. You used to go to school, you used to come back, your mom would feed you and she'd tell you to go study. At 4 o'clock, she'd kick you out of the house to go cycle or something, and that was it. 8 o'clock, you'd be back in, you'd have food, there'd be some STN something. This was life. STV. I don't know what it was, the Thundercats and stuff, right?
So, Rabiah, you had taken off for a year for your maternity leave, right? So, tell me a little bit about what it was like coming back to work after that year.
Actually, that was one of the biggest challenges, both mentally for myself and professionally. I came back after a year and a bit. So I took 3 months of maternity and then a year off. And here I waltzed back into work thinking, you know, it's all going to work out. There is this. I always come back into a situation thinking this is it. You know, nothing's going to change. I'm going to be queen of the jungle again. And it doesn't really ever work out that way, but it's a good feeling when you're walking in. I realized within a few days, not even a week, that I had missed a couple of train stations here. So people, my peers had moved on. They'd moved on in the promotion cycle, they'd moved on in the work they were doing. I had never thought a year and 3 months
that's not a long time.
I had never thought it was so long. So it was a huge dent to my ego. Huge dent. The money wasn't very good either, so it was even worse. Right?
So what did you do?
So, well, my husband was there. He has this comment that he always makes, think of the big picture. I hate that comment because, you know, I don't want to. I want to live in this moment. But really, that was important because that was just a small part of my life that I had to go through. I had to ditch the ego. And I think at that point, what really helped me was that unwitting mentor I talked about. He did not think it was any big deal. And he was multiple levels above me. And he said, you know, and I remember his words clearly to this day. He said, you know, in life, everything averages to mean. So you might be behind now and other people might be ahead right now. But in 10 years, you'll all be at the same level. And the best performing will also all be at the same level. So if you perform well, over 10 years, this minor 1-year blip will not count. And actually 10 years later, because it is now 10 years since I've gone back to work, it really doesn't. So you do make up for it. It helps that you're in an organization that helps you make up for it. So they also realize that, you know, this person is doing this much and we have to pitch in here. But yeah, so it was a very challenging couple of years. I moved to HR then, and I made up those promotions and that experience in HR and moved back to finance after 2 years. And yeah, and here I am.
What are your plans going forward?
So if you'd asked me this 6 months ago, Alia, my plans were very different. I wanted to become CFO, you know, this was a lot more, move to the power sector. I had a lot of plans, but we're expecting.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
Now, thank you. So now plans are a little gray.
Okay.
Yes, so I did move to the new role, I did take on a lot of things, but you also realize that, you know, there's mat leave coming up and you want to make sure things, I'll see how it goes. So life is a lot more gray right now. I have a plan in place, and yes, I do want to grow in the power sector in more. Powergen is a smaller company, but there's a lot more happening in the power sector that
There's
I'd
a
like
lot
to
happening,
explore.
yes.
Yes, it's a very dynamic sector.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that I do look forward to exploring.
So
further.
maybe we'll catch you again after a few years.
Inshallah.
My key learnings from today's session, number one is we must lose the ego, especially going back to work, and as little a time as even 1 year can make that difference. So, and number two something that I'm learning from you is to just keep at it.
Yes.
You know, just ride the wave, ups and downs, but
Yes.
just keep at it and just keep the longer picture or the bigger picture
Oh, yes, again.
in mind. So till next time, bye.